You have been there. Everyone who has ever played serious poker has been there. You pick up a strong hand, you build a story across the flop, you keep betting the turn, and then the river comes and everything inside you goes quiet. The pot is enormous. Your hand is nothing. And somewhere between the math and the fear and the weight of all those chips in the middle, you check. You give up. You surrender the pot you spent 3 streets building. And your opponent takes it with a hand they would have folded if you had fired one more bullet. That moment right there is costing you more money than any bad beat ever will. Not because bluffing is always right, but because most players have no idea when the triple barrel is the highest expected value play at the table. No idea which boards demand it. No idea which opponents crumble under it. And no idea how the best players in the world construct the complete 3-street story that makes a river bluff not just credible but mathematically inevitable. This video is going to change that. We are going inside the most advanced triple barrel bluff strategy in modern poker. We are going to build this from the ground up, street by street, by concept, with real hands from real high-stakes situations, explained in a way that makes complete sense whether you have been playing for 3 months or 3 decades. By the time this is over, you are not going to check that river again out of fear. You are going to know exactly when the triple barrel is the move, exactly how to construct it so your opponent cannot call, and exactly what separates the players who use this play to print money from the players who use it to donate chips. The river is not the problem. The problem is everything you did before you got there. Let us fix that right now. The pot is in the middle. 3 streets of pressure are waiting to be deployed. And the difference between your results before this video and after it starts in the next 60 seconds. Most players spend their entire poker careers being afraid of the river. The best players spend their careers building toward it. After this video, you will know the difference, and you will be on the right side of it every single time you identify the right spot. Every check on the river that should have been a bet is money you handed to someone else. Every triple barrel that was planned from the start and executed with precision is money you took from the reactive players who had no idea it was coming. That is the difference this video is designed to create in your game. Scared money never wins, but reckless money loses faster. The elite player lives in the space between fear and chaos, and that space has a name. It is called precision. Before we go deep into the advanced mechanics, we need to establish something that most players get fundamentally wrong from the very beginning. A triple barrel is not 3 bets in a row. A triple barrel is a 3-act story. And like every great story, it only works when every act is logically connected to the one before it, when every development builds naturally toward an inevitable conclusion, and when the audience, in this case your opponent, is so invested in the narrative by the time the ending arrives that they have no choice but to accept it. Most players who attempt triple barrel bluffs fail not on the river, but on the flop. They make a continuation bet that tells no coherent story. They make a turn bet that contradicts the flop action. And then they fire a river bet into an opponent who has had no reason to believe anything they said across the first 2 streets. That is not a triple barrel. That is 3 random bets that happen to follow each other in time. The triple barrel that works, the one that extracts folds from strong players and generates consistent profit at high levels of the game, begins with range construction. Before you ever bet the flop, you need to know what range of hands you are representing, whether that representation is credible on this specific board texture, and whether you have a plan that holds logical consistency across all 3 streets of the hand. The best players in the world do not decide to triple barrel on the river. They identify on the flop that a triple barrel line is available, that it is coherent, that it is credible, and that the specific opponent across from them is vulnerable to that specific story on that specific board. Then they execute the plan with the calmness of someone who has already seen the outcome. The river bet is not a decision. It is the final sentence of an argument that was already won on the flop. The players who understand triple barrels as stories rather than as sequences of bets have access to a level of the game that most players never reach. They do not run bluffs. They author narratives, and the opponents they play against are not reading their hand. They are following the plot of a story that was designed to end exactly one way. The story you tell across 3 streets is more powerful than any individual hand you can hold. A mediocre hand told well beats a strong hand played poorly every single time. This is the deepest truth about bluffing in poker, And it is the principle that makes the triple barrel not just a play, but a complete philosophy of how to approach aggressive poker. The player who plans from the beginning never panics at the end. Preparation is not a luxury in poker. It is the only real weapon at the table. Range construction is the foundation of every successful triple barrel, and almost nobody at the low and middle stakes levels thinks about it correctly. Here is the core principle you need to understand before anything else. When you triple barrel as a bluff, you need to be triple barreling in a way that is balanced with your value hands on the same line. This means that the range of hands you choose to bluff 3 streets with should be selected to complement and balance the range of value hands that would also take this exact line across all 3 streets on this specific board runout. If you are triple barreling as a bluff on a board where your value range for this line is very narrow, you are imbalanced. A good opponent will recognize that your triple barrel range on this texture cannot contain many value hands, and they will call you down at a frequency that makes your bluffs unprofitable. This is why board selection is not separate from range construction. They are the same decision viewed from 2 angles. The boards that favor triple barrel bluffing are boards where your overall range, including your value hands, has a structural advantage. When you raised preflop from a position that represents a wide and strong range, boards that connect with that range allow you to build coherent triple barrel lines with both value and bluff hands. Consider this hand from a high-stakes cash game. You open from the cutoff with king-queen of spades. The flop comes ace of spades, jack of diamonds, 10 of clubs. This board is extraordinary for your range. You have flopped the nut straight with king-queen. You have many strong value hands in your range that connect powerfully with this texture. Ace-king, ace-jack, ace-10, king-queen, queen-9 all live in your preflop opening range, and all connect with this board in significant ways. This range advantage means that when you bet this flop and continue betting the turn and river, your story is structurally credible regardless of which specific 2 cards you hold. That credibility is what makes the bluff possible. Without range advantage, you are asking your opponent to believe a story that the mathematics of the situation do not support. Range construction is not an abstract concept reserved for solver sessions. It is the most practical thing you can do before you decide whether to bet the flop. Ask yourself one question every single time. Does my preflop range make this bet credible? If the answer is yes, you have a story worth telling. If no, the best bet is often no bet at all. Range is not what you have. Range is what your opponent believes you could have. The player who manages perception manages the pot. The board runout is the screenplay of your triple barrel story, and knowing which runouts create the most powerful triple barrel opportunities is one of the highest value skills in all of modern poker. Not every board that starts well stays favorable for bluffing across 3 streets, and not every board that looks dangerous on the flop becomes a triple barrel opportunity by the river. The players who understand how runouts evolve, how each successive card changes the relative strength of both players' ranges, and how to identify the specific turn and river cards that make triple barrels not just viable, but highly profitable. Those players have access to a form of positional aggression that most of their opponents cannot defend against. Let us talk about the 3 categories of favorable runouts. The first is the scare card runout. This is when the turn or river brings a card that is more threatening to your opponent's calling range than it is to your betting range. If you opened from early position and bet the flop on a board of 9-8-6 with 2 clubs, and the turn comes the ace of clubs, that card is devastating for your opponent's calling range. It completes flush draws, it brings an overcard that many of their made hands did not want to see, and it dramatically strengthens the range of a player who would bet the flop and continue on this specific card. Your triple barrel bluff on this runout is not random aggression. It is a calculated response to a card that makes your story more believable than it was before the turn was dealt. The second category is the blank runout that consolidates your range advantage. If you bet a flop where your range is structurally stronger than your opponent's, and the turn and river bring cards that neither improve obvious draws nor connect with obvious calling hands, each street of inaction from your opponent consolidates your relative strength. Their passive line suggests weakness. Your continued aggression represents the hands in your range that benefit from passive opponents on consolidated boards. The third category is the coordinated draw completion runout. When draws complete on the river and you have represented a range that could include those draws, the completed board gives your bluff maximum credibility. The player who selects board runouts instead of reacting to them has already won the strategic layer of the hand before a chip is moved. Board selection is not luck. It is preparation meeting opportunity, and the prepared player sees opportunities on every street that reactive players miss completely. The best bluff is the one that looks like it was never a bluff. When your story matches the board, the truth and the lie become indistinguishable. This is where most players lose significant money, and almost nobody at the lower levels understands why. Blockers, which is the effect your hole cards have on the combinations of hands your opponent can hold, are not a minor adjustment to triple barrel strategy. They are a central pillar of how elite players select their bluffing hands across all three streets. Here is the foundational concept. Every card you hold in your hand reduces the probability that your opponent holds combinations containing that same card. If you hold the ace of spades, your opponent cannot hold ace-ace with the ace of spades, cannot hold ace-king with the ace of spades, and cannot hold the nut flush draw in spades if spades is the relevant suit. These reductions in your opponent's combinations are not small. In specific situations, holding a single blocker can reduce your opponent's combinations of a particular hand by 25 to 50%. And when you are deciding whether to bluff three streets in a pot where your opponent's most likely calling hand is a specific type of made hand or draw, having a blocker to that hand can swing the expected value of your bluff significantly in your favor. Let us make this completely concrete. You are in a hand where the final board reads King of Hearts, Queen of Spades, Jack of Clubs, Two of Hearts, Nine of Spades. Your opponent has called two streets of betting and is clearly strong. They have a hand that can call a third barrel. The question is which hands they can call with that beat a complete air bluff. Ace-10 is the current nuts with the Broadway straight. King-Queen, King-Jack, Queen-Jack represent two pairs and full house possibilities. Now consider this. If you hold the ace of hearts and the 10 of diamonds in your hand, you hold the exact cards that make the nuts. Your opponent cannot hold ace-10 offsuit with the ace of hearts because you have it. You have blocked the primary hands that would call with confidence. This is not a minor edge. This is a structural advantage that makes your river bluff more profitable before your opponent even looks at their cards. This is why elite players choose their triple barrel bluffing hands not randomly but with precise attention to which specific cards they hold and what those cards remove from their opponent's strongest calling combinations. Blockers are the hidden mathematics of poker that most players leave completely unexplored for their entire careers. When you start incorporating blocker analysis into your bluffing decisions, you will immediately notice that certain hands feel cleaner to bluff with than others. That feeling is mathematics working beneath your intuition. The player who understands blockers is not bluffing. They are calculating. The difference between a bluff and a calculated bet is the difference between gambling and winning. Before we go into the next section, which is one of the most practically valuable parts of this entire video, I want to take 30 seconds to ask you something. If this content is genuinely improving how you think about the game, hit the like button right now. When you like and share this video, the algorithm identifies it as high-value content and distributes it to more serious poker players. This channel exists to produce the deepest and most practical poker education on YouTube, and every like and share makes that possible. Subscribe if you are not already part of this community because what we cover here goes places most poker content never reaches. Now, there is something I want to recommend to you as a mentor rather than as a salesperson, because what I am about to tell you has the potential to do more for your poker results than any single video can accomplish on its own. The Mind of a Grinder. Complete System is a collection of 10 advanced poker ebooks that were designed specifically to give serious players the complete framework they need to think, decide, and execute at the highest level. These 10 books cover everything that takes years to learn through experience alone. Hand-reading systems, GTO fundamentals broken down into practical application, tournament strategy across every stack depth, cash game mastery, the mental game architecture that keeps you performing under pressure, bankroll management, opponent profiling, advanced bluff construction including everything we are covering today, and the complete decision-making psychology that elite players have developed over thousands of hours at the table. The full collection is $29.90. The link is in the pinned comment directly below this video. I am telling you about this because if you are the kind of player who watches a video like this, you are exactly the kind of player who will get extraordinary value from that collection. It is not a course with videos and exercises. It is 10 books of concentrated, applicable, elite-level knowledge. The kind of knowledge that transforms how you see every hand from the moment you start reading. Now let us get back into the content because the next section is going to fundamentally change how you think about pressure at the poker table. The players who invest in structured knowledge compound their edge with every session they play. The players who rely only on experience repeat their mistakes at a higher frequency. The choice between those two paths is always available. The decision to take the faster, more efficient path is always yours to make. The fastest shortcut to excellence is learning from the people who already got there. Every hour you spend in serious study is an hour your opponents are spending at the table, making the same mistakes. Understanding pressure thresholds is one of the most overlooked and most powerful concepts in triple barrel strategy. And once you see it clearly, you will never approach a three-street hand the same way again. Every player at every table has a breaking point, a specific level of pressure, applied across a specific number of streets, at a specific bet sizing, beyond which their hand is no longer strong enough to continue. The elite triple barrel player does not randomly apply pressure and hope their opponent folds. They identify the opponent's breaking point before they begin, and they construct a pressure sequence designed to arrive at that breaking point precisely on the river. Let us define the 3 phases of pressure in a triple barrel bluff and explain what is happening psychologically and mathematically at each stage. The flop bet is the declaration. It says your range is strong on this board, and you have reason to believe you are ahead or likely to improve. The majority of your opponent's range either folds immediately, which is already a win, or continues with a range that is now narrower and slightly weaker on average than their pre-flop calling range. The turn bet is the test. This is where many players, including very good ones, become uncomfortable continuing without strong hands. The turn bet says you are not only still strong, but that you are confident enough to risk additional capital after receiving a call on the flop. Players without strong hands, players on draws that have not improved, and players with weak-made hands that cannot withstand another street of pressure frequently fold to turn bets. This is where your triple barrel collects a massive amount of fold equity that many players leave uncollected by checking back instead of firing. The river bet is the ultimatum. There is nowhere left to hide, no more cards, no more draws to chase. The opponent must decide whether their specific hand beats the specific range you have represented across 3 streets of consistent aggression. And here is the critical insight. By the time you fire the river bet, you have already given your opponent 2 opportunities to fold. Many of the hands that were going to fold have already folded. The river bet is directed at a narrowed and specific set of hands that have survived 2 streets of pressure and still cannot beat the range you have been representing. When your board run out, your blockers, and your range construction all align, the river bet achieves fold equity from hands that would never have folded to a single bet on any individual street. Pressure is not aggression. Pressure is information delivered with a price tag attached. The player who prices information correctly extracts maximum value from every hand. One of the most practically important dimensions of triple barrel strategy that almost nobody discusses in depth is the dramatic difference between live poker population tendencies and online poker population tendencies, and how that difference should fundamentally change the frequency and construction of your triple barrels depending on where you are playing. This is not a minor tactical adjustment. This is a strategic transformation that, if you understand it, will immediately improve your results in both environments. Live poker populations, even at relatively high stakes, are characterized by one overriding tendency that makes triple barrel bluffing both more powerful and more risky than it is online. Live players call too much. This is the single most documented and replicated finding in serious poker research across every level of live play. Live players overvalue made hands. They undervalue the credibility of opponents' betting ranges. They are more susceptible to the emotional appeal of not being bluffed out of a pot they have invested in. And they are less familiar with the mathematical frameworks that define when a hand is simply not strong enough to call 3 streets of pressure. What this means for your triple barrel strategy in live poker is precise and counterintuitive. You should bluff less frequently overall, but when you do bluff 3 streets, your selection criteria must be sharper. Your story must be cleaner. Your blockers must be more relevant. And your opponent must be specifically identified as someone who folds to multi-street pressure rather than someone who falls into the general live tendency to call. Bluffing a live calling station 3 streets is not brave, it is expensive. In online poker environments, particularly at mid-stakes and above, the population has been trained by solvers and GTO study to fold at higher frequencies to coordinated multi-street aggression. Online players at serious stakes have internalized the concept that calling 3 streets without a strong hand costs them money over the long run. This creates an environment where well-constructed triple-barrel bluffs with coherent range representation, appropriate board textures, and relevant blockers can be executed at higher frequencies against a wider range of opponents with positive expected value. The key adjustment for online play is speed and systematization. The reads you develop in live poker through observation over many hours must be replaced online by population-level frequency data and board texture analysis, because you do not have the individual data on most opponents that live settings provide across a long session. Know the environment before you know the opponent. The table you sit at determines which weapons work before the first card is dealt. This section might be the most valuable in the entire video, and it is certainly the one that will save you the most money in your very next session. Knowing when to triple barrel is powerful. Knowing when not to triple barrel is what separates the players who use this weapon profitably from the players who use it to fund their opponent's winnings. Let us go through the 5 situations where firing a third barrel is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. First, do not triple barrel when your opponent's range on the river is capped above yours. If the board and the action suggest that your opponent's range contains many hands that beat the range you have been representing, your river bluff is simply telling a story that the facts contradict. If you have been representing a flush draw that missed and the river is a blank, but your opponent check-called 2 streets on a board where the top of their range is full houses and sets, their range crushes your bluffing range, and your bet will be called at a frequency that makes it deeply unprofitable. Second, do not triple barrel against players you have identified as calling stations. This sounds obvious, but it costs enormous amounts of money because players misidentify calling stations as temporary tilters or variance victims, rather than as players with a fundamental strategic preference for calling. If you have seen an opponent call down 3 streets with third pair twice in the same session, that is not bad luck. That is a calling station. Your triple barrel bluff against this player has negative expected value regardless of how good your blockers are. Third, do not triple barrel on boards where your range has no credible strong hands. If the runout creates a board where there are very few combinations of strong value hands you would take this exact line with, a good opponent will recognize that your triple barrel range is bluff heavy and adjust their calling frequency upward dramatically. Fourth, do not triple barrel when your bet sizing across streets has been inconsistent in ways that undermine your story. Sizing tells stories too, and inconsistent sizing breaks the narrative. Fifth, do not triple barrel when the pot size and effective stack create a situation where a call from your opponent puts you in a position you cannot recover from financially or psychologically. The most dangerous triple barrel is the one executed on tilt against an opponent who has already shown you they will not fold. Knowing when not to act is the rarest and most expensive skill in poker. Any player can learn to be aggressive. Only the elite learn when aggression is the mistake. Now we bring everything together. Range construction, board runouts, blockers, pressure thresholds, population tendencies, and the precise identification of when not to fire. We are going to walk through a complete triple barrel hand from pre-flop to river, street by street, with every decision explained and every principle applied in real time. Picture the final stages of a major tournament, substantial money separating each pay jump. The table has been playing tight and straightforward for the last hour under the pressure of the money bubble. You are in the cutoff with ace of clubs, 5 of clubs. Your range from this position at a tight table includes a wide variety of hands, including many premium holdings. You open. The big blind, a competent and observant player who has been playing solid poker all day, calls. The flop comes king of clubs, 9 of clubs, 4 of hearts. Take a moment to recognize everything this board does for you. You have the nut flush draw, the 5th highest possible flush, if clubs complete. You have backdoor straight possibilities. And critically, your range from the cutoff contains a very large number of hands that connect powerfully with this board. Ace-king, king-queen, king-jack, sets of 9s and 4s, 2-pair combinations, and strong flush draws all live naturally in a cutoff opening range. You continuation bet. Your opponent calls. The texture of their call suggests a made hand of moderate strength or a draw. The turn is the 2 of clubs. The flush draw has arrived. The most important thing that just happened is not that you improved. It is that the entire dynamic of the hand shifted. Your opponent's range, which was already on the defensive after the flop call, must now navigate the reality of a completed flush board. Any hand they hold that does not include clubs and is not a very strong made hand is in serious trouble. You bet the turn representing the flush you actually have drawing potential toward. Your opponent calls again. This call tells you a great deal. They likely have a king with a decent kicker, a set of 9s, or possibly a smaller flush. The river is the jack of diamonds. No flush completes from new draws. The board is now king 9-4-2 jack with 2 clubs. Your opponent checks. Every element of this situation points toward the triple barrel. You have the nut flush draw that missed, but your range absolutely contains completed flushes. Your ace of clubs blocks the nut flush ace-king of clubs specifically. Your opponent has checked, suggesting they are not comfortable leading into a player who has bet 3 streets representing enormous strength. You fire the river bet. Most opponents in this situation, even competent ones, find a fold with king-queen or king-jack because the hands they hold simply cannot beat what your 3-street story represents. The ones who do not fold reveal a set or a flopped 2-pair, and you show your hand, take your note, and remember for the next hand that this specific player calls 3 streets with this specific type of hand. That information is worth more than the pot you lost. Every hand you play is either a lesson or a profit. The best players extract both from every single situation at the table. Here is what I want you to leave with, because this video covered a lot of ground, and the most important thing is not that you remember every concept we discussed. The most important thing is that you leave with one fundamental shift in how you approach 3-street hands. Most players arrive at the river having reacted to what happened on the flop and the turn. The best players arrive at the river having executed the plan they built on the flop. That shift, from reactive to planned, from impulsive to constructed, from hopeful to strategic, is what the triple barrel is really about at its deepest level. The river bet is easy when the first 2 bets were made with intention and precision. The river bet is terrifying when the first 2 were made with hope and uncertainty. You now have the framework to be the player who bets with intention. You understand how range construction creates the foundation. You understand how board runout selection determines which stories are available to tell. You understand how blockers give you a mathematical edge before your opponent even acts. You understand the pressure thresholds that make opponents fold by the river even when they called the first 2 bets. You understand the critical difference between live and online populations and how to adjust your frequency accordingly. And you understand the 5 situations where not firing the 3rd barrel is the highest expected value decision available. That is not just one concept. That is a complete system. The 10 ebooks in the Mind of a Grinder complete system available for $29.90 through the link in the pinned comment take every one of these concepts deeper than any video can. 10 books covering the complete architecture of elite-level poker thinking. Bluff construction, hand reading, mental game, GTO application, tournament, and cash game mastery. Everything you need to make the shift from the player you are right now to the player you are capable of becoming. The link is in the pinned comment. The price is $29.90 for a lifetime of structured knowledge that compounds every time you sit at a table. Go get it. And then go sit down at your next session with the clarity, the confidence, and the precision of a player who has a plan before the first card is dealt. The river is waiting. This time you will not check. This time you will bet. And this time, you will already know why. Confidence at the poker table is not arrogance. It is preparation made visible. The player who has done the work does not fear the river. They own it.